Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Miller. Every week, I chat with fascinating people from all walks of life in order to bring you knowledge, inspiration, and insight. If you enjoy the show, you can support it by subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with a friend. This is the Jeremy Miller Podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Today, we have a solo episode talking all about being ready for everything, whether it's a 5K, a track workout, a HYROX event, 100-mile race, marathon, whatever it might be. Just being ready for everything. Physically, in shape, fitness baseline high enough to be able to go out and tackle any event that life throws at you. And the reason for this podcast is because I've been doing a ton of races this year. I've done 5Ks, marathons, 100-mile races, now training for HYROX. I've done so many different races this year, and I get so many questions about how are you not overtraining? How do you not get injured? How do you implement and incorporate all these different events within the same training cycle? So I'm going to kind of go through all those questions today, answer those. I'm going to talk about how I train, why I do all these different events, how I avoid injury, how I eat, how I recover, all those things that are going to help you guys hopefully build more fitness and be ready for any type of event that you're trying to train for, and just really being ready for anything. So hopefully you guys get something out of this episode. I'm going to try and provide as much knowledge, insight, information as I can, and make it very valuable for you, hopefully. So to kind of go through just some of the races that I've done this year, because there's been a lot, let me go through these real quickly. So in February, I did the Orlando Magic 5K. I ran a PR there of 17 minutes. Then a couple weeks later, I ran the Austin Marathon in 3:03. That was kind of just like a fun run. I pushed it a little bit, but mostly just enjoying it and just kind of running based off of feel. About 2 weeks after that, I ran the Mesquite Canyon 50 miler. This was a desert trail race down in Phoenix, Arizona. Ran that in 11 and a half hours. Then about 3 weeks after that, I ran the Speed Project. That was the team relay race from LA to Vegas. I ran a total of, I think it was 65 miles over like a day and a half there. About 2 weeks after that, I ran the Jersey City Marathon. This is where I paced my friend to run a 2:54 marathon. The next weekend, I ran the London Marathon in 2 hours, 58 minutes. The following weekend, I ran the OC Marathon out in California, ran that in 2:58. So that was the back-to-back sub 3 hour marathons, 3 weekends in a row. And then my main race for this year, the big focus for the first part of 2024 was Bighorn 100 miler. That was hardest thing I've ever done by far. 26 hours, 45 minutes to complete that. A lot of elevation gain. You guys, I have a whole other podcast talking about that experience. That was a crazy experience, but Bighorn 100 was the main focus of 2024. And then now since then, like we've been traveling. We did van life for 3 weeks, lived up in Wyoming with some family for a bit during the summer. And now we're back here in Austin, Texas, and it's mid-August. And this last weekend, I just ran a 5K, signed up like 2 days before, ran 18:01. It was hot, it was humid, a little bit hilly of a course. And for really not doing any speed work for the last 4 or 5 months, I'm very happy with an 18-minute 5K. And then this coming weekend, I am running the Nightcrawler 12-hour endurance run. So this was actually the first race that I ever did back in 2020 when I first started running. No clue what I was doing. I was running like 10 miles a week at the time, signed up last minute, had a friend talk me into it. I was full like David Goggins mode, and I'm like, I'm going to just sign up for this 12-hour race. I ended up running 43 miles. I hurt my knee, and that caused me to stop early. But so yeah, going back to my very first race I did in 2020, basically how the race works is it's from 6:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. I'll have 12 hours to run as many miles as I can. It's an 8-mile loop with 1,000 feet of gain per 8-mile loop. It's all on the trails. It's pretty much all in the dark. It's a very challenging race. It's a really good intro and simulation to ultras and 100-mile races. And really the main goal is to, one, beat my original time from 4 years ago, which I think I can definitely do that. second goal would be to potentially win or at least go top 3 at this race. It's pretty small. There's only like 40 runners, but there are some actually really good trail runners that usually show up because it's 12 hours, so it draws a lot of people in for that. So excited for that. That's coming up this weekend on August 23rd. And then the following week, Bree and I will be running the Kauai Half Marathon on September 1st. We did this one last year. I'll just be running this one with Bree. So for me, it will be a very chill day, but excited for that. And then the end of September, I'll be running Boulderthon. This is the Boulder Marathon on September 29th. Don't really have a goal for that yet. I would love to run sub 3 again, but I need to do some more marathon training between now and then over the next 5 or 6 weeks. So that's up in the air still. And then the main race that I will be running and training for the second half of 2024 is HYROX Dallas. This is on November 23rd. If you don't know what HYROX is, it is a cardio intensive endurance race. You're in a total of 8 kilometers, so roughly 5 miles. In between each kilometer, you have a strength station. So you have 1,000-meter row, 1,000-meter ski erg, burpee broad jumps, farmer carries, sled pull, sled push, wall balls, and I think that's it. I might be missing one. I don't know. But anyways, 8 kilometers, 8 strength stations, and I think the world record is like 54 minutes. I think most people, the average person finishes in like an hour 20, hour 30. So similar to like a half marathon, 10K. I'm very excited for this. I've been training not that much. I just started like a couple weeks ago. But very different training from what I'm used to. It's a lot more like functional stuff, but like high intensity functional stuff. So like doing 20, 40-minute workouts, just like moving consistently, constantly for 20 to 40 minutes. And it's just a totally different type of engine that's required for that type of race. So I'm excited for that. I can tell it's going to require a different level of fitness, but I'm really excited to start training for this. So all that being said, those are the races I've done this year. And the ones I have coming up. And again, the topic of this podcast is going to be just being ready for everything. Like those are all very different races, all require very different training, different types of fitness. Obviously a 5K to a mountainous 100-mile race couldn't be much different. So going to dive into all this stuff. And I think that the main point I want to make from this is just being a well-rounded athlete. You don't want to be, in my opinion, unless you're, an elite athlete, professional athlete training for a specific event, the marathon, a 5K, trying to go to the Olympics, trying to be the best in the world. I don't see a lot of benefit in being one-dimensional. Like, there's no point, I don't think, in me going and just being the best 5K runner I can be, because then if I want to transition to a marathon, if I want to, go run 10 miles with my friends, 20 miles, am I going to be able to do that and do it well? Probably not. But if you're always kind of dabbling and doing all these different things, some people might push back and say, well, you're a jack of all trades, but a master of none. I don't see any benefit unless you're an elite athlete, a professional athlete trying to hone in and fine tune a specific distance. I think that you're going to be better off. It's going to be better for your body, better for longevity, better for your overall health to be able to dabble in all these different events. And so that's kind of the main reason for this episode. And it goes outside of just racing and competing. It's like if, I don't know, your car breaks down and you need to go run 5 miles to the mechanic store, whatever, like you're able to do that. If a dog is chasing you, or if you're playing with your kids in the backyard and you want to be able to sprint, you can do that too. If you're moving furniture, or if you're in some weird situation where you got to pick up a log or a rock or something to save somebody's life, like you have the strength to be able to do that. So that's kind of the rationale. It might sound crazy to some people, but those are honestly the things I think about when I'm training for all these things is, yeah, I want to be able to do these races and do them well and kind of be able to do anything, but also in real life situations, like being able to use my body in all these different modalities and just kind of be ready for anything life throws at you and be ready for any type of race. So I'm just rambling. But hopefully this is making sense. I'm going to talk about how I train for all these different things and how I kind of like incorporate all these different events. So what I really like to do each year is I like to have 1 to 2 big annual efforts. 2023, it was the Boston Marathon, and then in the fall, it was the Chicago Marathon. I had 2 big marathon efforts that year. This year for 2024, main objective was the Bighorn 100. So I did all these races, all these little things leading up to that, building mileage, doing the 3 sub-3 marathons, the 50 milers, and then the second half of 2024 is going to be the HYROX event. So, the 5K I just ran this weekend is going to help with that. The 12-hour race I'm doing this weekend probably isn't going to help a whole lot. It's not going to hurt me. But I built all this training up over the summer that I want to utilize in this race. But I want to basically pick 1 to 2 big efforts per year, and then within those, leading up to those, find little things that are going to help me along the way. So training for Bighorn, I picked up all the marathons. I did 4 marathons leading up, and building that speed, building that endurance, being able to run on tired legs. That helped so much on race day at the 100-miler. Obviously doing the 50-mile race leading up, doing the speed project, all these different races helped to build that fitness and obviously being able to use that on race day. Same thing for the HYROX. So and the reason for 1 to 2 workouts, or the reason for 1 to 2 big efforts per year, is I think every 6 months or so, our bodies can do a big effort. I think if you're doing more than that, like if you're really pushing your limits and trying to maximize your potential, I think about every 6 months, at least for me, what I find is pretty ideal. And it seems like most elite athletes and pro runners do the same thing. I think that's why the major marathons are spread out every 6 months. You've got all the ones in the spring, all the ones in the fall, broken up every 6 months roughly. So it seems like 1 to 2 times a year, finding a big effort to go and train for, because then you can just 3-4 month build up, hit your race, take 1 to 2 months to kind of chill, have an off season, do some other things, 3 to 4 month build up, do the race, and so on. So I find that 6 month block to be really, really beneficial. And so, yes, where do I go next from here? I guess I can dive into my training, talk about how my training varies depending on what I'm training for. Obviously, a 100-mile race is going to require much, much different training than a 5K or a HYROX or something. But for the most part, my running volume stays relatively the same. I'm always running like minimum 20 to 30 miles a week, every single week, no matter what. And most of those miles are very, very easy miles, like 9 to 10 minute pace. I usually run with the dogs for the first few miles, and they're a little bit slower than me, so they're very slow miles. Like if you see my Strava, if you see my Instagram where I post my runs, most of the time 9 to 10 minute pace. I don't care. I think just logging miles, getting your body used to always moving, always being able to go for a run. You don't always have to go and smoke yourself. You don't have to have your heart rate jacked up. You don't have to go set a PR every day. And this took me a long time to learn. When I first started running, I didn't understand that. I tried to run as hard as I could every single day, and I was always hurt. I was always tired. But being able to just find that nice chill pace, spend time on your feet, and just get the miles in, I feel like that is so much more beneficial than trying to go out and run fast every single day. And then when it comes to speed work, that's really just race specific. So for a marathon, obviously, I'm going to be doing one big speed workout a week, occasionally like a big marathon workout on the weekends. Like right now for HYROX, I'm going to do one speed workout a week, and then the other high-intensity stuff is going to be built into the strength training portion. If I'm training for a 100-miler or an ultramarathon, probably less speed work, more speed work based on feel, some more fartlek type sessions, rather than like pace-specific sessions. So I think everybody should do speed work no matter what you're training for. It just depends on what type of speed work you're doing. Again, for HYROX, it's going to be shorter, more intense stuff like 200 meter, 400 meter, 1,000 meter repeats, probably nothing much longer than that. For a marathon, obviously, you're going to be doing a lot of like tempo stuff, like 5 mile, 6 mile efforts. And then again, for ultras, it's just like, 1 minute on, 1 minute off, 2 minutes on, that kind of stuff. So very race specific speed work, but always doing some kind of speed work, or at least I try to. And then as far as lifting minimum 3 times a week, always. Typically 3 big heavy days. So 1 big heavy day for legs, some squats, deadlifts. I love doing like box step ups, Bulgarian split squats, like kind of the functional movements. I'll hit a big chest day with some bench press, hit a big back day with lots of pull-ups, some barbell rows. And then I call them bonus days. So 3 days a week minimum of strength training. And then the bonus days, that's again where it gets more race specific. So that's where if I'm just trying to be healthy, be functional, kind of well-rounded, I'm going to do a lot of kettlebell stuff, kettlebell cleans, kettlebell snatches, lots of kettlebell swings, that kind of thing. For HYROX, obviously, that's where it gets really race-specific because there's so much strength involved in the race itself. So that's going to be like the sled push, the sled pull, the ski erg, the rowing machine, lots of farmer's carries, tons of wall balls. Very race specific. For an ultra marathon, that's where I'm going to do a lot of like very, very, very functional stuff. So like lots of single leg things, a lot of like box step ups, tons of box step ups, tons of Bulgarian split squats, because that's going to really focus on loading up that single leg action with weight, balancing. I also got a slant board leading up to Bighorn, and that helped me tremendously. I would do basically like isometric holds on the slant board, where you stand on one foot, you get in kind of like a lunge position, balancing, bend your knee, bend your ankle, and you're kind of simulating holding your body in that position with load, like you're going to be when you're running. Every time you land, you're in that bent position, your hips bent, your knees bent, your ankles bent, and on the slant board, you get these different angles of like supination, pronation, uphill, downhill, and that helped me so much, mostly for like ankle mobility and ankle strength, because on a trail, there's rocks, there's roots, it's always uneven, and that helped me a ton. So yeah, and for HYROX, I want to talk about the high intensity stuff. Totally different engine than what I'm used to. Like the workout I did yesterday, we had 8 different strength sessions, or strength workouts. So we had like basically all the ones you'd have in HYROX, so like wall balls, lunges, sled push, sled pull, that kind of stuff. And then in between each one, I would row for 2 minutes, and then I do the strength session for 2 minutes, row for 2 minutes, that for just 40 minutes straight. It's very high intensity. It reminds me of like a really fast-paced, high-intensity like tempo workout, because you don't really get a lot of rest. You're kind of always moving. And when you're incorporating the strength side of things too, it's so much energy required, because not only is your heart rate high, you're pushing yourself from a cardio perspective, but you're using so much energy from the strength side of things too, because your muscles demand so much energy, and you have to be paying attention to your form. So it's just a totally different way of training, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I think a big thing to note is like all the training I did before, like the functional stuff in my garage gym with like kettlebells and the box step ups and the deadlifts and all that stuff, very functional training, translated very well to this high intensity HYROX type training. I really haven't had to learn a whole lot. It's a lot of the same movements. You're just using different machinery or different pieces of equipment. For example, like a ski erg, if you think about it, is almost like a kettlebell swing or a deadlift. It's this hinging movement, this pulling movement, and this explosion at the top. So very similar to that, or like a sled push and sled pull are going to be similar to like a deadlift, or going to be similar to like box step ups, because you're pushing, you're driving, and it's controlled. You have one foot on the ground at a time. So all these things translate really, really well. So again, going back to being ready for everything. And I think it's a skill. There's, could be some genetics at play, or some, not genetics, but like maybe more so like your life experiences, I should say. Like if you play sports growing up, like for me, I played hockey, I played baseball, I golfed, I guess that's mostly, I played football for like a year, but kind of dabbling in all these different events, I think builds all these different skills over time. And then that way, if I want to go play basketball, I kind of have those same skills from the other sports I played. And so just being adaptable, and you don't have to have that prior experience. Obviously it helps, but you can start building that now. You can start training like this and incorporating all these different modalities of training. So that way, if this fall you want to train for a marathon, but then next spring you want to do HYROX, you can make that transition because you're already ready and you can go and do it well, not get injured, not have to worry about overtraining. So again, the whole point of this is don't be one-dimensional. Don't just do bench dead squat every day, leave the gym, go run your 5 miles easy. Like, do some high intensity stuff, do some functional movements, do some kettlebell stuff. Just learn and be a student and be willing to be a beginner and try something new. And I think you're going to find, not only does it help, obviously, being prepared for anything, but it helps with the boredom and helps with burnout. I find that if I'm just training for marathons all the time, I get so bored, I get so burnt out because it's just the same thing over and over and over again. But if I switch to a 5K or a HYROX or a 100-mile race and I switch up my training a little bit, it's all kind of the same, but it's a new stimulus. It's a new goal. It's a new mindset that's required. And so you're always flexing these different muscles and honing these skills and always just adding another tool to your tool belt. So yes, lots of rambling today. If you're still with me, I appreciate you guys for being here. That's kind of an overview of my training, my kind of philosophy behind training. To sum that up, put it into a concise sentence, is just train functionally, lift heavy, run consistently, run your easy miles easy, do some speed work dependent upon your race, and just always kind of be dabbling in all these different things. I like to think of doing everything in sprints. So like, if I'm training for Bighorn, I'm going to spend 5 to 6 months really dialing in on Bighorn, race-specific training, and then I'm going to pull back from that. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to go do a HYROX sprint. So for the next 5 to 6 months, I'm going to really focus on HYROX training and so on. So kind of doing everything in these little sprints at a time and always switching it up. And I do think that there is a lot of crossover between marathon and 100-mile and HYROX and like these different engines that we're building. They help you in the other areas too. Like all this high intensity speed type stuff that I'm building in HYROX is only going to help me when I go train for my next marathon. All of the like long, slow climbing and miles that I did for my 100-mile race, that's going to help me at the marathon, maybe from a mental perspective, obviously a physical perspective too, just having that muscular endurance. But like, if I can go run for 26 hours in the mountains at a 100-miler, then 2 hours and 40 minutes at a marathon is going to feel so short and so easy. So you're always building a skill, always fine-tuning and sharpening those tools. So yes, there's my ramble. I'm going to talk next about how I eat and how I recover. Obviously, your recovery and your nutrition is just as important as your training. So I'm going to kind of dive into this. As far as nutrition, I follow the 80-20 rule as best I can. So 80% of the time I'm eating clean. I'm eating steak, ground beef, the raw milk, of course, as you all know, fruit. That's basically it. I eat pretty much the same thing every single day. For breakfast is like half a pound of ground beef, 4 or 5 eggs, some oranges, some berries, maybe some like high protein yogurt, some milk, and that's basically it. For dinner, most nights is some kind of steak or maybe like a ground beef bowl or a chicken bowl, something like that, something with like rice or couscous. Keeping it very, very simple. And then the other 20% of the time, I'll have some ice cream. I'll have some cookies. Bree and I will go out to eat. We'll get dessert. We'll eat the seed oil filled entree at the restaurant. So I think having like guidelines and having a balance of everything is crucial. I've tried the tracking the macros. I've tried no sugar. I've tried no sweets, and it lasts for like a week. It's just not practical in my opinion. You're gonna go out with friends. You're gonna go out to eat with your significant other. You're gonna be traveling. There's always gonna be something that comes up that's going to make it very difficult to get that 100% healthy food in. And some people do it. Kudos to them. But it takes a lot of work. And I think having that 80-20 rule just allows you to live life a little bit more too. Like, maybe when you're a month out from your marathon, you can skip more sweets. You can be more intentional. You can say, I don't want to get dessert tonight. But I think you got to live life sometimes too. You got to be a human. And I think the 80-20 rule really is a good balance. If you eat well 5 out of 6 days a week and you have one day of eating shitty, you're not going to die. It's not going to ruin everything. You're not going to get fat. You're going to be just fine. And I don't think you need to track everything. I've tried tracking stuff and it's so tedious. It's time consuming. It works for some people. But I just don't like having that relationship with my food. I like to eat when I'm hungry and not eat if I'm not hungry. I don't like force feeding myself. I don't like, saying no to something because my macros say I've had enough to eat today, even though I can tell that my body is still really hungry. I think intuitively eating is the way to go. And I think a lot of people would probably agree with that. People that have been doing fitness and training for a while. Also, I'm not bodybuilding. I'm not going for a specific physique. I think if I were doing that, maybe I'd get more dialed in. But because I'm just training for performance purposes, I want to get faster, I want to get stronger. That's where I think eating intuitively really can lend a hand. So that's my approach to nutrition. I think the 80-20 rule is very, very beneficial. In terms of recovery, I probably don't do enough recovery specific things. I think sleep is the number one thing you can do for recovery. I sleep minimum 7 hours a night. Most nights it's closer to 8. Time in bed, I try and be like 8.5, 9 hours. I usually fall asleep pretty quickly. I'll lay down, I'll read for 20, 30 minutes, shut the lights off, and I'm usually asleep almost instantly. So I think having some time before bed to wind down, putting your phone away, hanging out with the family, not really watching TV, not playing on your phone, just being present. Turn the lights down low. You don't need all these lights blasting. Some people go as far as like putting red light bulbs. I don't do anything like that, but or the blue light blocking glasses, the red lens glasses. You can do that stuff if that helps you. I found a routine that works for me. I think getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, I feel good. If I get less than 7, I definitely feel tired mentally. I feel more sore. I feel more tight. So for me, 7 to 8 hours seems to work perfectly. And I can tell when I'm consistently getting good sleep that I'm recovering much, much faster, and I just feel better. If I'm traveling a lot, if I've got like a really busy schedule and I get a few nights in a row where I've got like 6 hours of sleep, 6.5, I just feel like crap. So sleep is a huge, huge priority. And I know a lot of people struggle with sleep, and I think a lot of it comes down to like phones and screens and lights. We're like basically tricking our brains into thinking that it's daytime out, even though it's 9 p.m., 10 p.m., and the sun's been down for hours, but you've got all these lights on in your house. You've got your phone, inches away from your face with a light blasting into your eyes. You've got your TV screen on. You've got all this stimulus and this light. And I think that's one of the biggest inhibitors of good sleep. So I make a very strong point to stay off my phone, keep the lights off as much as I can, no screens or anything like that, and no work either. I try and stop working by 6, 7 p.m. at the latest because it's just so stimulating mentally. I love going for a walk like an hour before bed. I'll take the dogs around the neighborhood, go for a walk, no phone or anything, just being present, getting your thoughts out. And it's a really, really good way to unwind. So there's all these different things you can do to enhance your sleep. I think you got to just try a whole bunch of things, see what works for you. Obviously not exercising too late in the day. I usually don't lift or run past 7 p.m. I find it like wakes me up, gets my nervous system going, and then it's hard to fall asleep a couple hours later. I started wearing mouth tape and nose strips. So I used to snore a lot. I used to talk in my sleep a lot, and I think I would wake myself up. And putting the mouth tape on totally got rid of that. I don't really snore anymore, as far as I know. I don't talk in my sleep. And the nose strip just helps to open up your nose, obviously, to help breathe easier through your nose. So I've loved that. That's definitely helped my sleep quite a bit. And I feel like when I wake up, I can just breathe way better through my nose. My airways feel more open versus when I don't. If I forget it, or if I'm traveling or I run out or whatever, and I don't have my mouth tape with me, and I wake up, my nose is like stuffed. Love the nose strips. Love the mouth tape. There's some sleep tips for you. And then some other stuff as far as recovery. I'll plunge sometimes. If I'm here at home, if I'm not traveling, I'll plunge most days, probably 3-4 times a week. I do 2 minutes. Right now, I think it's set to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's not super cold, but it's cold enough, especially when it's hot like this out. It's 100 degrees in Austin. So hopping into 50-degree water is a big shock. I honestly don't feel a lot of recovery benefits from the plunge. I think the plunge is better mentally than it is physically, in my opinion. I know there are some benefits physically, obviously, but I find the biggest benefits to just be mental, flexing that like fight or flight muscle, that decision-making muscle. You want to get out so bad, but you're forced to stay in there, or you're forcing yourself to stay in there, which can obviously be very beneficial for running and endurance. So plunge occasionally. I don't stretch ever, never any stretching, no static stretching. The most stretching I will do will be like a couple quick dynamic warm-ups before like a speed workout. Maybe some like butt kickers, high knees, karaoke, lateral shuffle. There's some real basic kind of stuff, but no like static stretching. And there's lots of science to back this up. You don't have to static stretch if you're trying to perform at your best, especially for running. Even for strength training, as far as I know, static stretching is not great. Think of your muscles as a spring. If you're constantly stretching those out, you are not getting the springiness and the snappiness of your muscles that you could be. And I can tell if I'm consistently stretching, I almost feel worse if I do. I just really don't see a lot of benefit to stretching. I've tried both, and I feel better when I don't stretch, and I save time. So if stretching works for you, by all means do it, but I don't stretch at all. And the science would back that up from a running and strength training perspective. If you're doing yoga, obviously you need to be more flexible. You need to have looser muscles. But for most sports, you don't really need to static stretch. There's a lot better ways to get mobility. I love walking. I love walking for recovery. Motion is the lotion, as they say. I try and walk the dogs every day. Just 20-30 minutes around the neighborhood. If I'm out traveling, I love going for like an afternoon walk or an evening walk. Walking is so great. And if you can do it without a phone and just go out and be with your thoughts for 20-30 minutes, I don't think there's things much more powerful than that. And it just feels good. It gets all of the joint fluid moving. It gets the blood flowing, gets your heart rate up just a little bit. I think walking is one of the best recovery tools that we have, especially after a race. The same day as a marathon, I'll go out that evening and do like a 45-60 minute walk, just nice and easy. And I feel so much better the next day. It's like, I think the natural tendency, and I get it, is to lay on the couch all day after a big workout or after a marathon and let your body rest and recover. And you still need that. But I think the movement is key. And I think this is actually why, after like a 100-mile race or a big like ultra marathon effort, I'm usually not that sore, and most people aren't that sore because you're almost getting that like active recovery in while you're doing the race. So like for a 100-mile race, especially in the mountains, like I'm walking probably 30% of the race because you're going up these big hills, these big mountains you got to climb up. So you're forced to walk, and I think that low impact, just constant kind of movement helps your body recover a little bit faster. So motion is lotion. I love walking. I think another thing that's helped me a lot is band work. So I just take a mini band. I pick like the highest resistance, and I'll do some like side lateral steps. I'll do some high knees for the hip flexors. I'll do some kickbacks for the glutes and hamstrings. I'll do some like really deep squats with them. And I usually do kind of just those 4 movements. I'll sometimes like lay on the ground and do some like hip thrusts up to activate the glutes some more. The band work has helped a ton. I do that pretty much every day before a strength workout. Just gets everything loose, gets those muscles activated, gets the blood flowing, and I think that has helped me a ton. And then the last thing in terms of recovery is just reducing stress. I know this is a hard thing for a lot of people, for all humans. We're always stressed out about something, I think, whether it's work or family or travel or money or whatever it is. We're always stressed out about something. And there's different ways to reduce stress, obviously. We're all different. It's very subjective, but stress obviously is known to elevate your heart rate, elevate your blood pressure, slow down your recovery, reduce your performance. So finding different ways to reduce your stress, I think walking is a big way to do that. Any kind of meditation. So every morning I spend 5 to 10 minutes meditating and journaling and just being intentional, trying to be as present as I can. And I find that really helps not only get my thoughts out for the day, but it helps to reduce any kind of stress, anything that's like weighing on my mind. Journaling for simply 5 to 10 minutes, just saying, putting it down on paper or typing it on a computer of like whatever your thoughts are in that current moment, what you've been doing for the last 24 hours, what you've got coming up, anything that might be bugging you. It's almost like therapy with yourself. Like you can just get those thoughts out and you can kind of work through things. And it feels like you're talking to somebody else or like you're talking to your future self who might look back and read this. And I find that journaling helps a ton. And then just taking a few minutes, it can be 30 seconds to just close your eyes, be with your thoughts, be intentional, be present, and do some like real quick meditation. There's meditation apps out there. There's guided meditations. I've done those before. Those are great. But all those little things, I think it comes down to just intentionality and presence and just taking a minute to not be on your phone, not be on your computer, not talk to anybody else, and just be with your thoughts for just a few minutes. I think doing that every day at the beginning of the day has incredible powers. So highly, highly recommend that. And I think that can help reduce stress, which therefore can help your recovery. That's basically all I've got for you guys today. This is a quick and simple podcast. I've just been rambling for the last 35 minutes, but hopefully you guys got something out of this. Again, the big takeaway from this is be ready for everything. Don't train one-dimensionally unless you're trying to specialize in the marathon or unless you're trying to go pro or become elite for a specific distance or event. I think the benefits far outweigh the benefits of training multidimensionally outweigh anything that you can get from training one-dimensionally. Again, unless you're trying to be professional or elite or something. So just being a jack of all trades, being able to lift heavy, being able to sprint, being able to lift functionally, being able to run a marathon, being able to go do 20 miles on a Saturday if your friend asks you, just being ready for anything. I think there's so many benefits from a health perspective, from a longevity perspective, in terms of not being burnt out, and just feeling like you can kind of do anything and just being a well-rounded athlete. Some people call it hybrid training, whatever the hell you want to call it. Everybody and their grandma seems to be a hybrid athlete these days. It's so trendy. And I think it's fine. I don't love the term because I think it's literally just being an athlete, just being fit and athletic. And I think it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. So train multidimensionally. Don't be stuck on just one event, one thing. And I think you're going to enjoy the process more. You're going to enjoy the experience. And you're going to get to do way more and feel better while doing it. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. If you liked the solo episode, let me know. If you hated the solo episode, also let me know. I don't do a lot of these, but I really wanted to talk about this topic and share some information and knowledge with you guys. So hopefully this helped. And we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you in the next one.